this is where it talks about like breaking not just generational curses but also like breaking this culture, this work culture, this toxic kind of, I don't know, male, but I don't want to say all men are terrible. Like we know that, but like this boomer-esque work culture where you had to pretend as a woman that you were tough and that you were hard. I mean, even the whole concept of like shoulder pads and suit and business suits was to make you look more dominant, to make you look broader and stronger in some way. Like, yes, it also made you look like you had a smaller waist, which like, great.
Cool.
But I think that was all part of it. And so, and I see this even in my own mom. That was, you know, she's now in her 60s, 70s, but that was how it was for her coming up, being like a businesswoman, entrepreneur in the 80s and 90s. It was like so tough.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Medeiros.
And I'm Colleen Hungerford. And this is We're Doing This Right, right? A podcast for the whole woman, mind, body, soul, and business.
It's humor infused, as real as it gets, inspiring, and you'll walk away with real usable tools for life and business.
If you love what you're hearing, please share with a friend, subscribe so you'll never miss an episode, and rate and review whenever you listen.
So find your earbuds, lace up your walking shoes, or cozy up with the beverage of your choice. It's time to dig in.
There's it right. Are you doing it right? I'm doing it right.
I don't know, man. It is, we're recording this the day before Thanksgiving, and my dishwasher just like crapped out this morning. I mean, I'm sure we could make it work, but it like is leaking. It's not draining. It's leaking on the floor. Nothing's washed, which is just not awesome, but it's fine. And also, like, if I'm going to put a positive spin on this, at least it's like Black Friday sales. So
Great.
Yeah. So I will be getting a new dishwasher, which I understand some of this is like first world problems, but like that is fucking annoying.
I just heard a term this morning, Cadillac issues. These are Cadillac issues. I know. I really like it.
I don't know if this is a Cadillac issue. This feels like maybe like a Ford Taurus issue. Like if my jet broke down, I feel like that would be like a Cadillac issue.
That's a Porsche issue. That's
okay. Issue. Okay.
But I mean, let's go not Taurus, but maybe like a Ford Expedition. So Ford
like Expedition my Ford Explorer problem. This is a Ford, not Expedition, because those are massive. This is a Ford Explorer problem. This is like, it's fine. It's annoying. I tell my kids now, like, I'm going to go into dishwasher mode and I like put on my headphones and we'll like listen to music or listen to a book or something like that, because I cannot hand wash dishes without it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
In the spirit of cars, my third row car came home last night.
Yay.
And then promptly went back to work with my husband this morning. So I'm back in the truck. They forgot to give us the real plate on it. So he grabbed a dealer plate on his way out. And I'm not a employee of the dealership, so I can't drive it. With the dealer plate on it. So he had to take it back, and then I'll have to drive down today and get the right plate on it. Just logistical Honda Pilot problems. But I love it. We sat in it last night and like connected the things, and there's this feature in it. It's called Cabin Talk. So August, the oldest, will be sitting in the third row all the way back. And there's something called Cabin Talk where I can like basically walkie-talkie to the back, like do an announcement. Because I don't know about you, but like in the third row cars, it can be really hard to hear all the way in the back. Now I don't know if I'll be able to hear her, but
I can hear. My kids just yell.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is they're facing forward, so like their sound is booming forward, but I'm facing forward, so it's not booming backwards. Correct. I don't know how it works. We couldn't figure it out last night, but I'm sure by the time I get there, Alex will have learned it and told me what to do.
My favorite thing to do in my car is with the volume of the music or whatever, I can set it to be in the back of the car, because they always want it loud, 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 and I'm like, I can't with that, all that noise. And so it can be like, I can still hear it, but it's way louder in the back. And I'm like, this is,
what I do sometimes? Amazing. I turn music on in the backpack really loud for them. And then I put an ear pod in and listen to what I want in the front.
Oh my God.
Separate.
Hilarious.
Like we're in two different worlds. I basically have rolled up the window in the middle, like my dream.
David and I are always talking about the limousine window.
Yes,
The other day
me
we were
too.
talking and Vivian was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, brr, limousine window. Like, get out of here.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
None your business. And that oldest child thinks that everything is their business. They're like,
yeah.
what? I'm like, this is an adult conversation and I'm going to need you to see your way out of it, child.
Yeah, it wasn't even that big of a deal. I don't even remember. It wasn't like a big thing we were talking about, but I was just like, brr, put the window up. Like, get out. What are you doing? But yeah, it's just, it can get a little bit wild back there in that third row though. So that's what you need to worry about is
She's going to be back there alone.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like when you got friends. So we took Everett and a buddy to the Pacers game for his birthday. And so it was like so cute. So it was Jack, Everett, and his buddy in the back seat. And then Vivian and her friend in the captain's chairs in the middle. And it was the WWE wrestling back there. And sometimes when they're so far back, like you can't reach them. You can't do the hand to like, you know, calm them down or split them up or whatever. And David and I were just sitting in the front like, oh my God, like there's nothing to do. Now you have all girls, so it's a little bit different energy, but whew, I'm gonna tell you, 3 boys in the back row was quite a bit. It's hard with the 3 kids. David has a 5-seater car, so if they're sitting 3 in the back, now with Vivian she can sit in the front, which makes a big difference. But when the 3 of them were sitting in the back, it was like, do you remember that show Celebrity Deathmatch? Do you remember that like claymation show on MTV? Yeah. It's like Celebrity Deathmatch back there. Like someone will lose a finger or an eye. Like
this is why I've been like dying for a third row car, because that's my every single day to and from school, every activity. They're all 3 next to each other in the back. And I'm like going to lose my mind. So like as portion of a problem as this has been, I'm like, okay, well, my peace and sanity has been on the line. Like we were not in the market for a car. This was not our plan, but I promptly made it our plan because I was not going to survive. Mommy's mental health is of high priority. So let's give a little backstory about it's Thanksgiving, or it's the day before Thanksgiving. My roles are rising. This is a several step process. They're rising for the second time today. The older 2 are here. I've bribed them. If they clean their room, if they unload the dishwasher, then they can watch TV. And if they don't fuck with me for 2 hours, then they can have a treat. So let's see how this goes. Because Colleen and I are trying to record back to back today, guys. So
we're trying to really knock it out here. Listen, you guys just have to listen to our parenting stuff. Like if you don't, just like fast forward a little bit or whatever. But strict mom had to come to town. Fun mom is gone, by the way, the last few weeks. Strict mom is here. And we had a situation where Vivian was like not turning in her homework and didn't do well on a math test. And cool mom is gone. Strict mom is here. So strict mom this morning also made everybody, we had a list of chores and, you know, basic things like they had to clean up their room. They had to make their bed. But I also made everyone go through their closet and pull out all the clothes that don't fit. And then bag it and put it in my trunk because we're going to take that to Goodwill today or somewhere. But
take it to a thrift store that benefits something good. Goodwill's a for-profit.
Goodwill's stupid.
Rubs me wrong.
I feel like I say that.
I know, it's just the easy thing to say. It's like a Band-Aid.
Like how you say Kleenex. Yeah, exactly. So we'll take it somewhere. It was just like there has been no TV today so far. It's 12:20 in my house. No TV. That has been the hardest on Vivian, and she threw an absolute psychotic fit. So the rule was no TV until everyone's done with their chores. She was done first, and she went and turned the TV on. And then had an absolute meltdown when I told her to turn it off. So there is no more TV today. So you know what sucks about that? That makes it harder for me, especially when I'm trying to be in my room or my office to record for 2 hours straight. So we're just going to roll with it, people. We're just going to see how it goes. Cheryl's good at editing. Cheryl's also going to teach me how to edit. And we're going to be good. What we wanted to talk about today, as we're now like 10 minutes into this episode, everybody, is this came up in a conversation we talked about last week or prior to that about work buzzwords. I don't want to necessarily say corporate buzzwords, but kind of. I would say business buzzwords, and how often people or corporations or groups use these words, and then how often we're seeing them actually in play. And basically, like, how does that, I think to the heart of this is really like, how genuine are we when we say these things?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how genuine are we going to be about our core values when we have them in a business?
The words we're going to talk about, like the ones we're really highlighting today, I've got two things I want to say. First, I want to introduce you to the ones we want to talk about. We really want to touch on collaboration and networking. And those are two of the ones we really want to touch on. Maybe values too. I feel like that
core
might be
values
the one.
or something. Yeah.
And empowerment. Those. Okay. But I want to tell a little quick story about, I have two friends, married couple, both in healthcare, but like corporate healthcare. One's a nonprofit and one works for a corporation as a pharmacist. And so they're often in emails or meetings that could have been emails, that kind of situation. And I've had whole conversations with them where they're like, okay, let's do this whole conversation with just like the corporate words. So we're going to circle back and, just like those words, just so office spacey. I wish that I could remember more of them and maybe you can.
Yeah.
But I mean, just absolutely dying of laughter listening to this couple that both work in corporate talking around circles with just these fucking little sayings that mean nothing. And that are so overused.
Is my favorite. And what were some of the other ones?
Let me ask the robot if it can give us
like,
an example.
We're going to take this offline, or let's chat about this offline. Or like, you know what I noticed? And we don't work in like a corporate setting. So a lot of these words, phrases we don't use, but people will say like, will you just ping me later? And I'm like, what am I pinging you on? Like, why wouldn't I just text you or like message you? Like, what's the ping? So if somebody could explain that evolution of the ping to me. But I think, like synergy is such a funny one too. But I think there's a lot of these phrases, corporate phrases, but I think what we want to talk about is just these like more like value-based or core value-based words that people are using. And I don't know, I guess our opinions, because it's just our show.
Yeah, this is welcome to our world, guys. Thanks for subscribing. But before we go, I'm going to read you what the robot said. So I told it to just give me like funny anecdotal, like overused corporate phrases. So our team was in a circle back session trying to move the needle on a project. It was a real low hanging fruit situation. Just some quick wins to synergize our core competencies. But as usual, Bob couldn't stay in his lane and kept boiling the ocean with his ideas. Let's just pivot, Karen said, trying to leverage the bandwidth. We had just left before lunch. We need to table this before we run it up the flagpole.
Oh my God.
These are all, they were doing this. But we need to double click on the pain points first, Bob insisted. Let's not kick the can down the road. I tried to take it offline by parking it for later, but before I could align with the team, Bob threw in, let's peel the onion on this one and really deep dive. And to that point, I was thinking outside the box. What if we circle the wagons and just touch base next quarter? The room went silent. Karen finally broke it with, well, at least we're all on the same page. And just like that, we closed the loop on accomplishing absolutely nothing.
That's hilarious. Well done.
Thank you,
that
robot.
Was like a play. It was like a
I know.
play.
Thanks, robot. That was great. That was what I was looking for.
There are a bunch of those that people, even in our realm, use a lot. They talk about
they overflow,
not having enough bandwidth, or do you have the capacity for this, or
and those are valid. Those are valid things.
Questions.
They just get a little bit overused, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
And then become funny.
One of the ones that I think sparked this conversation was this term collaboration. And it is a core value of like the company that you work for. It is a core value of the company that I work for. I think it's a core value of most
every company,
companies
everywhere.
These days. But like, what I think is interesting about this word is like, what does that mean for corporations? Like, what do they mean by that? Or like, what do companies mean by that? Or even small businesses? And like, how are we really doing that versus like saying that we're doing that? I think that's kind of where this all came from.
You want a real example? I do think that I'm going to give a positive shout out to the company I'm with. They're one of their flag posts. I don't know. I can't remember what they're called, but it's collaborate without ego. Like it's one of their values. And so it's very much like, I learned this term when I started working with Rachel, but it's rip off and duplicate. So it's like, if I'm doing something that's working really well in my business, my role within my company is to share it and like let others use it and adapt it for their business and run with it. And I do really, at least in the circles I work with within the company I work for, feel that that is happening. And I really see it like in Marketing Center, where like I'll go to look for something and people have shared their whole listing presentation or their whole buyer's presentation or their whole, all these things. And I'm like, wow, that's really nice to just be able to now personalize this to make it my own. It saves a lot of time and energy and effort.
Yeah.
And then like our CMC group's an example of collaborating without ego as well.
Yeah.
I think we've done a really good job over 2.5 years of just sharing. Like there's no, the thing you always say, like the gatekeeping, there's no gatekeeping within CMC. And I do think that maybe that's kind of a good way to describe what collaboration really is like not gatekeeping.
Yeah. And I think really to me, I think what really irks me, I think is what I'm going to talk about. What really annoys me, what really pisses me off, is when there is this core value that is like toted so well, and I'm not speaking specifically about Compass or the agency or anything like that, but like just anywhere. But then I guess this inevitably happens, but then there are people within that group that like wave that flag but don't do it. And I just like, as somebody who really truly wants to collaborate and really truly wants to share ideas and like hear what other people have to say and think what other people have to say is valid, and I get so annoyed. So that's the other thing is like, how do you like, can't think of another word. It's like, how do you police that? Like, how do you like, somebody's like toting that but then not doing it? Like, what do we do in the, like, what do we say in those situations where you're like in a meeting and it's supposed to be all about collaboration? Again, I'm not talking about anybody specific. These are just like situations. And it's just one person leading the meeting and not letting anybody else
there's
speak.
no collaboration.
Like, there's no collaboration. Or like if somebody brings up an idea, it's shot down immediately. So like what?
Yeah, because
what do we do?
So I can think of two scenarios here. Like you publicly say, excuse me, with all due respect, I thought the purpose of this meeting was collaboration, and I'm not seeing that here. Like maybe we can open the floor. Like you could publicly call it out.
Yeah.
Or
does that make you the asshole though?
Or it makes you the fucking hero, depending on how everybody else,
or both.
Like you could be both, depending on, who's in the room and what other people are experiencing. Or you can do the, with the private thing where you approach the person after the meeting, with all due respect, I know that the purpose of that meeting was X, Y, and Z. I just don't really feel like the way it was run was in alignment with that, for another buzzword. Here would be my feedback. If you're open to feedback, here would be my feedback on that. Privately makes you the hero, but it can be less effective because if you're dealing with like a narcissist or someone that doesn't have any self-reflection, then they won't see it, and then you'll be their asshole, but you didn't publicly get any support because you didn't do it publicly. So I can kind of see how both could be effective and both could be a problem.
Yeah, I think it's hard to win in this situation, but I do think
we're gonna tally the first child interruption on Colleen's end. One for Colleen so far.
One for me. But I think because this is something that I really feel so strongly about collaborating, when I see this happen in multiple situations, it like literally makes me so angry. And I just am like really curious, what is it like to be the person who's like in this part of a group whose core value is collaboration, but then like that's not something that they're interested in, or that's not something they're willing to be a part of. And like, like, who is the person, or what, how do you deal with a situation where that is one of your, like, I have a team, right? And I'm building a team, and collaboration is a big part of what we do, right? And so I don't know that I could have somebody on my team who was unwilling to collaborate, but you don't really know that until you're like
In it
with them, right? And so I'm just curious, like, what is that life like when you're somebody who is like, yeah, I'm a collaborator, I love it, and then you get into the situation and they're just like, not absolutely, like, it just is it boggles my mind.
There's just not self-reflection. They don't have a mirror. They're not looking at themselves. They're not. And so maybe there's tools we could implement where we would ask probing questions and ask leading questions to kind of help them see in the mirror.
Yeah. I don't know what the answer is, and I think it's just a continued conversation. And one of the things that you said was feedback. And I think this is also another one of those buzzwords or words that people talk about where it can be used negatively and positively. Like, I've literally had somebody be like, let me give you some feedback. And then they just said like the most awful thing to me ever. And that was supposed to be feedback. And I'm like, I'm not really sure like how useful that was, but okay.
Yeah.
So
I
like,
think
how
feedback
are we
has to
using
be
feedback?
feedback has to be something that is like something constructive that you can work on. We're going to tally a second one for Colleen right now. She's
the same child.
Tally number 2.
She's standing at the stairs, like pleading to me. And it's just not going to happen. Anyway, go on.
Sorry, Vivian. Not today. Not today, Batman. I think feedback has to come with like, it has to be constructive. It's like constructive criticism. It has to be something that can actually be tangibly worked on. If it's just like, hey, you have this really terrible character flaw, well, not a lot to be done. Like, I was born this way. I mean, and not that we can't work on character flaws, but I don't know. Yeah,
I just think sometimes this feedback is used in a way to like be mean. I don't know how else to say it. Like, I think sometimes there is an intent to either like cut that person down or be mean to them or whatever. And it's like under this guise of feedback, which again is like a word that we're using, but we're not really like meaning. And I think that's probably the conversation that we're really having is like, and maybe we spin this instead of just like complaining, because that's really what I feel like doing. But like, spin this is like, as we're building our businesses, like, how do we come up with these core values that really mean something to us? How do we come up with these principles or whatever we decide that are important to us and that mean something to us? But then also, how are we making sure that those things are being implemented? I think that's probably the conversation that we should have.
Yeah. And I think that as a leader, if you are a leader, which most of our listeners, I think, are in that position or want to be in that position, you have to lead by example. So if collaboration is the principle that you are focused on and wanting to get from your team, then you are constantly asking for collaboration. So like, this was what I was thinking, but like, listen, I know I don't have all the ideas. I know I don't have all the best ideas. Like, the reason we're all in this room is because I have a ton to learn from you. Please speak up. And what do you think? Or even like not being the first to have an idea in the room and letting other people have an idea, or like in some way cultivating, another buzzword, a environment where like, okay, this is like kind of where I think we're going to go, but like, I need this to snowball with all of your guys' idea and feedback. And like, what is that thing you do when you're going to write a paper? Is it a brainstorm?
Yeah, like a brain dump. Like a brain dump.
Like a brain dump. Like, let's just like everybody throw everything at the wall and then let's like just look at it. And maybe that could be done through like an anonymous form, if you will.
Yeah.
If people are like nervous about, you know, if there is some like competition or whatever. And the other thing, I guess, would be like almost like eliminating competition if you really want to collaborate without ego. Well, and let's think back to like the team you were on before, or when I was at the commercial insurance company, and like the way that when I was there, we were pitted against each other in competition.
Yes.
To the point
Yep.
where when I was like, we're looking at the next quarter, and then at, week 2 of the next quarter, I'm supposed to be going out on maternity leave because I'm having a baby. And the manager's like, okay, Cheryl, what numbers are you putting up for quarter 2? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe
Baby
6 pounds,
numbers.
5 ounces.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like, what is that?
Like nothing. And why are you asking me in front of this group where now I have to feel shameful that I'm gonna have
like
a
what's the
baby
point
next
of
quarter?
that?
Like this makes me feel yucky, and like I'm gonna be the loser here. And like,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not losing. I'm fucking winning life. I just had a baby,
Yeah.
or I'm about to have a baby, and like how yucky that was.
Yeah.
That did not breed for collaboration. That did not breed teamwork.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. I think I don't think there has to be. I think there's a way to like incentivize people. And I know that there are some people who like competition is a way to incentivize them. And I am that person. I like it. But the way, the team that I was previously on, it's so old school. And this is how some teams are run, but it just didn't work well for this team in particular. There was a big whiteboard in the back, and everybody's sales volume was on it. And at first, how it went was everyone's name was on the board and everyone's sales volume was on it. So if you had nothing for that quarter yet, you had a 0. And every meeting, we would all tromp back to the board, and it would be like, okay, so what are you going to do here? Right. Mm-hmm. And so it was really, so then it went to like, and then everybody was kind of like, hey, it kind of sucks when you have a 0, even though you're working really hard. So like maybe like we could not do that anymore. And so then it became, okay, well, you have to get onto the board.
So then your name's just not even on it.
So then your name's just not on the board. And then it's like, you need to get on the board. How come you're not on the board? And those were the conversations that were being had instead of, wow, look at how great Cheryl's doing this week or this quarter. Like, cheers to her. It was, you need to get on the board. What are you doing to get on the board? Why aren't you on the board yet? Like, your numbers haven't changed. And it came from this really weird, like punitive. And then and that was how we started the meeting. And then we would all sit in a circle and feel like shit. And so it's like, but you felt awesome when your name did get on the board, but it was also very competitive. Like you were like, well, yeah, now look at me. I'm the shit and you guys suck. Like that's and then it evolved into people getting angry when other people won. Like I had people say to me like, I can't believe you've already sold $1 million house. Like, I didn't even do that for 5 years. Like, who do you think you are? And I was like, I think I'm somebody who's
just
trying
out
to
here working
make
hard.
money. Yeah, like
doing what I can. Well, and then also, I mean, let's fast forward that mentality into like a couple months ago when we ran into the conversation we had about where you were like, I don't know if I'm going to get this deal to close. And you felt kind of like a failure because you weren't sure if your clients were going to want to close a deal. And when you called me, I was like, okay, well, your clients don't want to close the deal. Like yeah, fine. Your clients don't want to close the deal. Great. You work for your clients. And you had been brought up, if you will, in this business where you got to get those numbers on the board. If you don't close a deal, you're a failure.
Oh, if you didn't close the deal, if you didn't get good agents got their deals to the closing table no matter what. That was what we were taught. And that meant no matter if it was good for the client or not.
Right.
That meant just get to the closing table.
And we've had a lot of conversations about this now, and I know like probably a 180 has been had on your end, and this was no fault to you, but it like, our fiduciary duty, we work for our client, and a career is made out of happy clients that feel heard and taken care of. And like short-term success is made from getting everybody to the closing table, regardless of like if it's the right thing for them or not. Just so interesting. And I'm curious about the age of that team lead that you were on. Demographic.
She would be a early Gen Xer.
What's that make her?
In her 50s. That's
okay.
Gen X.
Yeah, that manager I had, that was my big issue, was like, she's approaching retirement. So I think she's in her 60s, late 50s, 60s. And like the mentality of that was just so
Here's what I think about this. And while I think that generation, and I think particularly women in that generation have a responsibility to make a change, I think those women particularly came up, right, in their 20s and 30s in a time that was so toxic, so male dominated,
Yep.
so still trying to break the glass ceiling situation,
Yeah.
that they had to pretend and work so hard and basically pretend that they were not women, if that makes
Right.
sense. You know what I mean?
They had to be
And
so like toxic masculinity, so tough, all this like gross, like not the gentle success that we're here for now.
And it really permeates for a long period of time unless you're willing to make that change, right? Like I mean, again, it comes into like, you can't let anybody know that you're a mom. You can't let anybody know that you have kids. If you have kids, you won't be taken seriously. If they know you have kids, they'll think you're a quote unquote part-time agent and that you're just a stay-at-home mom that watches TV and eats bonbons. I mean,
wish I had time for TV, y'all.
First of all, a stay-at-home mom is the fucking hardest job I've ever done. I did it in spurts of months, and I was like, no, thank you.
There's a reason I work.
Yeah. And
so
second of all,
childcare.
Yeah. Second of all, so I do think that there is, and this is where it talks about like breaking not just generational curses but also like breaking this culture, this work culture, this toxic kind of, I don't know, male, but I don't want to say all men are terrible. Like we know that, but like this boomer-esque work culture where you had to pretend as a woman that you were tough and that you were hard. I mean, even the whole concept of like shoulder pads and business suits was to make you look more dominant, to make you look broader and stronger in some way. Like, yes, it also made you look like you had a smaller waist, which like, great. Cool. But I think that was all part of it. And I see this even in my own mom. That was, she's now in her 60s, 70s, but that was how it was for her coming up, being like a businesswoman, entrepreneur in the 80s and 90s. It was like so tough, and I can understand that experience, but I think what has to happen for the future moving forward, and I think, as much shit as Gen Z gets about stuff, I think they do a really nice job setting boundaries, and I think that they're very respectful. I think there's a middle that has to happen, right? Like, I mean, this is no shade, but somebody texted our group thread today. This person is in their 20s. They're an agent. And they said, hey, guys, could somebody help me out today? I have a closing at 4 o'clock. This was like 9 a.m., not even. But I woke up with a fever. And like, the boomer mentality of me was like, bro, first of all, that's like 6 hours from now. Second of all, like take a Tylenol. You're going to sit there for 35 minutes and do nothing. Like the closing table is like the easiest part of our job. Typically it could be shit show, but I was just like, who's going to tell them? Who's going to tell them? Like, you got to just show up.
Though, remember what a big portion of that person's life COVID was.
Yes. But I'm like, what other symptoms do you have? Like, are you puking? Do you have diarrhea? Like, what do you do? What's wrong?
Is there blood coming from an orifice?
Like, what's the problem? So in my mental, like, and then that is very much like, that came from my mom. That came from this other like kind of boomer mentality. It was like, you don't not go to work. Like,
oh yes,
you better show up no matter what, which is also like a terrible work culture. But like to some extent, like if you've got like some sniffles, like chill out, go to the closing. You're gonna be fine. You have a fever, like take some Tylenol, go to the closing. And I'm not trying to be like Joe Rogan over here, which like gross, gag me with a spoon. But I just think there's gotta be some sort of balance of this like one way or the other.
Well, let's talk about pendulum swing. And we hear about this pendulum swing in like politics. We hear about it. We hear about it everywhere. It's like, so we were so far that way. Now we're going to go so far this way. And it's like where we really need to be is somewhere in this middle. We don't need to be on the extreme ends, but it swings that far first before we land somewhere, like before we ease into like a nice middle flow.
Like when I had pink eye so bad that my entire face was swollen and I almost needed an EpiPen. I asked somebody to go to my closing for me. But like
Just so no one else would throw up.
everybody else was gonna be fucking freaked out because I looked like a scary monster and like goo was coming out of my eyes. But
So growing up, if we weren't bleeding, vomiting, we were going to school. Like those were the two.
yeah,
My little sister dove into the swimming pool, cracked her 2 front teeth like off, made like a triangle off her 2 front teeth. Like couldn't get into the emergency dentist until like the next day. Mom made her go to school. Then she had like temporary caps on those because she was too young. Oh, let me tell you all the times my mom made my little sister go to school.
dude.
So then she had the temps on. So if she ever ate anything like gooey, those would come off, which
Oh
happened
my God.
all the time. So then mom would make her go to school so she can get into the dentist. Okay.
Oh
Then
my
one
God.
time she nared, sorry, Erin, it's all coming out. She nared her mustache
Oh
and
my
then
God.
it burned her. So because
Yeah.
it burned her, she was like, well, I'm going to put aloe on this burnt
Oh God,
green
no.
aloe. So that it turned the scab green.
Oh
And mom made her
no.
go to school.
Oh no.
And Erin, who grew up to be like a cosmetologist, like she is so into appearances and makeup and hair.
Oh my God.
My poor little sister. I am amazed. They're like best friends. I can't believe that they're best friends.
Yeah, it's just like wild. It's wild, but there is that like pendulum of work ethic plus like being respectful of people and respectful of people's time and I think that's where, and if we're going to swing this back, if we're going to reel it back in on collaboration, that's why this
circle
is,
back.
We're going to circle back. We're going to pull it all together about collaboration. This is why this is important. This is why true collaboration is important, right? Because, you know, if somebody on my team was like, hey, Colleen, I woke up with a fever, I'm puking my guts out and whatever. And I'd be like, yeah, man, like, no problem. I got you.
Well, and this is why a big reason why you and I have created teams is because we want to be able to have gentle success where we can be really successful, but we can like lean on others and support others. And it's two-way street, you know, like I want to pick up the slack. And so like when I have a team member that's going out of town, I'm like, listen, whatever you're comfortable handing off to me, hand off to me. And you just shut your phone down as much as you possibly can and like lean into your vacation or whatever it is you're doing. Like that's what I'm here for. And then the hard part then for me is remembering that it's okay to ask
also
for
do
that
that
back.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I've built this whole idea that this is what I want to do, but then I have the hardest time actually asking for that.
Yeah, I think it is tough. It is tough. And in the team that I'm creating right now, Nicole and I do everything together. Every one of her transactions we do together. And it's still her name. Like this was the other part when it's still her name. It's still her listing. They're still her clients. But we're doing everything together. One, because she's still learning, but two, because we both are moms and we both have kids, and regardless if we didn't have kids, we still have lives. We still have other things that we need to be doing. And, you know, there's times where she's like, I can't go to the inspection because I have X, Y, and Z already scheduled. No problem. I'm there. And I already know everything about these clients in this house and whatever, because we're all looped in. And this was something that I learned from you as well, Cheryl, and from our CMC group, is like how important it is to really to have another person on the deal, which is what you always taught me and said, is like have the other person on the deal so that, you know, when you can't show up to the inspection, you have somebody who is already looped in who can show up to the inspection. But I think in this idea of collaborating without ego, you know, as somebody like me who is a high achiever and I like to get recognition. I'm not afraid of saying that, right? And I like to be good and I like to be the best, blah, blah, blah. Like, a big part of this for me was also allowing her to shine, also collaborating so that she could be, you know, like see her name on the sign for the first time and, you know, have everybody be calling her because they had questions about the listing and not me. Now, is my name still on the listing? Yes, because for legal reasons, if she needs backup or whatever, or that has other questions, like I will be there. And I'm the more experienced agent. So, if shit gets crazy, then here I am. But I'm really trying, and I'm not saying it's easy for me either, this collaboration thing. That's something that I really try and work on every single day. But I think that's where we're going to start to see these real manifestations, real coming to life of collaborating and collaborating without ego, which, you know, I was at Compass and that was something that was really important to me. And I held that really close to my own personal core values. I think I just got irritated when there were other people who were not doing that as well.
Right.
And that's where
which
it
is
really pisses me
what
off.
your frustration is again right now, which is how we came here, is like,
Yeah.
live what the thing is. So I want to talk about ego. And because I think this is a taboo thing to talk about.
Sure.
But it is something that everybody has.
Yep.
So we all walk around with our ego. Like I took psych in college. It's pretty rusty. That was 20 something years ago. But like literally every single one of us is walking around with an ego. It affects us in our work life. It affects us in our marriage, our families, our friendships, our parenting, within ourselves. Like it is present literally everywhere. And it is delicate. It is the most delicate little flower that we have. And I think that if we become more aware and more willing to acknowledge how delicate it is in ourselves, and then watching outwardly and seeing like, oh, this is going to hurt that person's ego, or this may hurt that person's ego the way I'm going to deliver this message, or like being able to see like, oh, well, that's an ego reaction. And then like being able to respond accordingly. I think that we will be able to move more smoothly through the world.
I think it's fucking hard. I think it's really hard.
So hard.
And I think when you're really trying to be aware of that, like you and I talked about this, we had something similar, like a situation happen recently with a group of people, you and I and another group of people, where I was really angry about something. And I had to just take a moment to not respond, because I was like, I need to figure out why I'm so angry about this, because it's not a big, quote unquote, big deal, but to me it was a big deal, right? And I was like, is this just me in my feeling feelings about this, or is this valid? And I don't want to say something that's going to be misinterpreted or hurt somebody else's feelings or ego or whatever. So I'm just going to like take a moment here. And I think that is hard to do. And I think that is, I mean, to be able to realize that and to be able to not just react is a practice, is something that
and listen, self-reflection, man, not easy. No. Not easy. And all of this, like, I mean, we started the conversation around self-reflection and how like some people don't do it. You don't do it because it's not easy. Yeah. It's not easy to turn the mirror around on yourself and see what role you might have in it, or not that you had any role in whatever this was we were talking about, but just in general, like it is not easy to turn the mirror around on yourself and think like, did I play a part in this? Am I guilty in some way? Did I misstep somewhere? We don't ever want to be wrong. We want to be the hero in our story. Right.
I also think as women, and listen, no man listen to this because they will use this information against us.
And three other listeners.
And Jason and whoever else is listening. I think it's it. Is understand where you are in your cycle too. I think that's really important. And we talked about having tracking that and stuff like that, because like there was during that situation, I also ripped somebody else's face off for something that was maybe not a major thing. And I was like, man, what is up? Like, I am about to fight somebody. Like, somebody's getting in a fight with me. And I had to kind of take a look. Like, I had to kind of take a mental inventory. I'm like, okay, seems a little bit weird that you're like all of a sudden fighting with people. Okay. Are you upset about something else? Are there other things going on? Are you not rested? Or have you not eaten enough today? Like, where are you in your cycle? Like, what's happening with your hormones? Like, I think it's important as humans that we also take that mental checklist too, right? Like, did you eat today? What else is happening? How much have you been sleeping? How much coffee have you drank? Like,
enough or too much?
Are you hyped up on caffeine? Like, are you just running off diesel at this point? And I think that is an important ego check, if you will, as well, right? To be like, are these reactions real? Are these reactions based off environmental things that I could be doing better at? Are these reactions based off of something unrelated that I'm now taking out on other people? I mean,
This is bringing me
a
back to
lot.
being like 14 or 15 years old. And I had my first like high school boyfriend. And all of a sudden, I couldn't fucking stand him. Couldn't stand to be around him. I was like eked out, this is so like this situation repeated itself over and over again in my life with men. Like I'd be like so into it. And then all of a sudden I'd be like, ugh, I can't. You did one little thing and now you're
You get
so
the
gross.
ick. Now you got the ick.
You get the ick. I can't.
Yeah.
But I remember my mom saying to me, Cheryl, like, you're going to start your period. Like, don't do anything right now. Like, don't break up with him. Just wait a minute. You're going to start your period. And I was like, no, I'm not, Mom. Like, whatever. Shut up. Shut up. You're wrong.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure that was a factor in it in hindsight. Like, as you're saying this as a 39-year-old adult now, I'm like, huh. Wow, look, that pattern's been here for a long time. I mean, it's like a couple months ago when I'm like crying in the bathroom, like, I want to run away from this life and this family. Like, Alex, fucking help me.
Yeah.
I'm so overwhelmed. I can't do this anymore. And then like 2 days later, I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. I guess this makes a little bit of sense.
It's my favorite meme, which is like the minute you get your period and then you're like, I knew I wasn't a fucking weak bitch. It's like you just, it's like you just know, like you're like, damn it, because you're crying about everything or you're mad, whatever. Anyway, so I just think there's so much, if we talk about ego, like there's so much that is involved in that as well. And to be a responsible leader, I think these are some of the things that you have to like self-check in on, right? Like, we talk about self-care so much, but like these are the things that are self-care. Like, if you haven't slept if you haven't slept since 2014 when your kid was born, like, I'm like, how many kids do I have? How old are they? If you haven't slept well since 2014, like shit is going to be crazy, or like, if you're not feeding your body well, like shit's gonna be crazy for you. David realized the other day, like, that if he drinks too much coffee, he gets like anxiety. Like he gets like really
Welcome to the party, David.
And stressed out. It doesn't happen for me. If I drink too much coffee, I think my adrenals are just dead. They're dead now. That maybe used to happen to me, and now they're just like shriveled up on top of my kidneys. Being aware of those things is important too. So.
Well, and I think, okay, let's go back to leadership. If you are like leading a group, and I think it's okay to have the disclaimer of like, hey gang, I'm feeling a little bit irritated.
Yeah.
This could be my cycle. This could be a lack of sleep. This could be like, I may not be myself today. So please, again, and this is collaboration, like, please correct me if I'm wrong. Please feel safe to speak your mind in this scenario. Like, as a leader, I think giving your team permission to speak up to you when we're in those scenarios is very useful and kind, and will give you the true feedback, like an opportunity for feedback.
Yeah.
Or another buzzword.
And that is, the other buzzword we were going to talk about is culture, but that is creating culture, right? That is the idea of creating a culture or creating an environment where people feel comfortable saying, like, to somebody else, like, hey, you know what? I didn't really get a lot of sleep tonight or last night. I'm feeling pretty grumpy today. So I'm going to just take a step back from contributing to this meeting today. Unless I have something that I feel like is really important or I feel very strongly about. Because like, you could come to a meeting so cranky and so tired and just be a fucking bitch. And then you've ruined the relation. You could potentially ruin relationships with people.
Well, and you've sucked the energy out of the room. Like, negativity is like the loudest noise in that room. Yeah. And you're going to bring everybody down with you.
Yeah. Or like, hey, listen, I got a lot going on right now. I'm pretty stressed. We're going to run this meeting. If anybody at any time feels like they want to jump in or they want to take the lead here, like, respect. Do that for me.
Yes.
Please.
Yeah.
I
do that a lot with the kids. Back to my parenting podcast. Sometimes I'll pick them up from school and I'll be like, all right, mom has had a day. Mom has a headache. I didn't sleep well last night. I'm feeling super duper grumpy. please be on my team here today and make my life as easy as possible. Help mama. Like,
Yeah.
I think just kind of like giving people the disclaimer, the warning, like,
Mhm.
warning, mom's psycho today, or like,
Yeah.
hey team, mom's psycho today, whatever it is, give the
Well,
husband. And
I
honestly,
do it to David. I do that. I'll go like, listen, I'm going to tell you that I am PMSing really bad, but what I have to say is very valid. Like, so
Right.
you cannot
Yeah.
use this as an excuse.
right. Just because I'm here in my cycle does not mean this thing that's upsetting me is not true.
But it might
just
come off
means-
really bad.
Yeah, it might come off really mean. So
Or I might say
prepare
something
yourself.
really mean, but I just want you
Right.
to know that this is really bothering me and these things are still valid. Like, I mean, David gets all the disclaimers all the time. He's like, you're nuts, I think. Anyway, yeah, I just, I think this is an important conversation to keep having about leadership. I think there's so much to have, but I think if we're really talking about collaboration, if we're really talking about culture, if we're talking, we didn't talk about networking, but we can do another episode on that for sure. I think we have to kind of really, it sounds so cheesy, but like really live those things and really have a lot of self-awareness to understand like that we might not be doing those the best. And that might be our intention to have these things, but like to really be open to understanding and learning and be open to other people's conversations and other people's opinions and ideas. It doesn't always mean you have to agree with them, but like being willing to experience those things is important.
Yeah, be willing to listen and listen to hear. Don't listen to respond, listen to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for circling this back to culture.
I really
collaboration,
landed the plane. I really landed the plane.
feedback. I'm glad we circled the wagons and we were really able to accomplish everything that we intended to here today. So,
Yeah, I wish we knew more of those phrases, but we don't.
I
want
know.
to. But
Thank God.
ping us if you have any feedback you'd like to give us.
All right, guys, keep doing it right. And we'd love to hear from you. So click that text us button on the wherever you're listening and subscribe, follow, rate, review. Oh, we get to put one on my child interruption
That's
at the
pretty
end.
good. That's pretty good.
So it's 2-1. 2-1.
That's pretty good. I think I had more, but I just ignored. So.
All right,
right,
guys.
bye.
We'll see you soon. Bye.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining us on this journey of laughter, life, and growth.
And remember, you're not alone on this path to success. We're right here with you every step of the way.
Please remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's conversation, we'd be thrilled if you would leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback means the world to us.
And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a good laugh and some practical insight into navigating the challenges and triumphs of our minds, body, soul, and business.
Remember, we're doing this right.